Welcome to MacGyver's Workshop, where you never know what we're going to be working on next. If you're not too careful, you just might learn something.
Hi there. Welcome back to another episode of MacGyver's Workshop. You never know what we're going to be working on next, and if you're not too careful, you just might learn something. So, the next step, as we're working on our front end, rebuilding, refurbishing, however you want to call it, we've got the majority of it, the differential side or the driver's side, done up with, we wet blasted it and cleaned everything up and checked everything, replaced anything needed replacing, with the exception of the ball joints, which is where we're at now. And I've got the spindle off, and we're going to get the ball joints off. You can see how it's done. All right, now we'll start with our bottom ball joint first. And what we've got, you got a little snap ring in here holding it in. And usually it's going to be completely covered in gook and grime and all that. So you'll kind of want to clean that off. And then we'll see if we can, even though all the holes are filled up here with all kind of spooge and grease, and you got to figure this thing's been around since 1982, so it's getting definitely kind of long in the tooth. But we're going to make her just as good as new. This thing's probably not going to want to come out too easy if it's stuck in there, but we'll see. Now look at that. Piece of cake. All right. Now we've got that off, what we can do is we'll push the ball joint through this way, and to do that we're going to use a ball joint press. Now your basic ball joint press is going to come with the actual anvil and press mechanism here. And you put your drive rod in through like this. And then you'll have a variety of adapters and sleeves here to finagle around, the ball joint to get it to go the way you want it to go. Now, I'll take a second and set this up for what we're going to have to do here with this particular ball joint, because every one of them could be set up different. So that's why these kits come with a whole bunch of different size sleeves and armatures and that sort of thing. And there's also an additional kit here that I have that it's a supplemental kit that comes with even more different types of adapters to help you get a tricky ball joint out of the spindle. Now, one thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and take this grease fitting off. That way it'll give me a nice flat surface to push on. So we want to push this ball joint back through this way. And that way you don't have to worry about adapting around it or anything. And comes off easy peasy. I guess you should say, well, how do you know whether the ball joint's bad or not? Well, I guess you can, look at this and see all the rust falling out of the top, and it has all kind of free play in it. So yeah, the ball joint's done. So now that we have that all at the ready, and I'll go ahead and zoom the camera out a little bit so you can see the whole process in action. Now you're going to want to jig your ball joint press up on the ball joint here. And you have to remember it has to come through a good bit, like about an inch or so. But that's why these things have a hole through the end, so that the stud on the ball joint has a place to go. And then sorry if I'm getting in the way of the shot here, but all right. Now I'll zoom in on it, and you can see as this ball joint gets pressed out of here. Now it's liable to fight you. They, you know, that thing's been in there about almost 40 years. It's not in any big hurry to come out, so that's why we'll use our impact rather than trying to turn it by hand with a wrench. That's just not going to end well. So I'll secure my vise in place here. We don't want anything moving around unexpectedly. All right, let's give you a bird's eye view of how that thing presses through there. And Lord willing and the creeks don't rise, it should pop right out of there. And there you go. Of course, everything's going to be all topsy-turvy in here. And you gotta retract your ram stud here. And you get out into the shot here, and there you go. One lower ball joint out of there. Now sometimes you have to get a little creative to get this top one out, because you know your stud's going this way, so that's where your open hole needs to be, but your bottom ear's in the way, so sometimes you just have to kind of think outside the box and go like so. And that's how we do it here. Now this top one doesn't have any kind of snap ring or anything on it, so you don't have to worry about that. And principle's the same. And away we go. This one's fighting a bit, huh? This one don't want to go. That's okay. She'll cut loose. There you go. Did you hear that? That's where she popped loose. And there we are. Easy peasy, as they say. And there's your upper ball joint. in all its rusty, worn out glory. And think that this was the better of the two. This spindle is off the actual donor truck, not the original. So, yeah. And then I don't have the replacement ball joints yet, so that's probably going to be a video for another segment. But that is how you remove the ball joints from a four-wheel drive F150 old body style. This one's an 82, so was it 82 to 89 or something? And now we'll take and put this in the sandblasting cabinet, get it all prettied up and looking good. And once we get our new ball joints, then we'll show you putting them back together, which is pretty much the reverse of disassembly, just a few different adapters, and we're pushing them in instead of pushing them out. So, all right, now we're going to put our new ball joints back in. We'll start with the top one, and the service manual says you always put the top ball joint in first. I don't see why, but okay, that's how we'll do it. I'll be lining all our tool stuff up here and press her on in. There she go. She's in like flint. All right, now we do the same for our bottom ball joint. We install our snap ring. And she is in there. Of course, then we'll put our little booties back on here. And then our grease fitting. Now, we can put the spindle back on the truck. All right, now time to put our spindle back in place here. Now I'm keeping this shaft in here. You don't have to have the shaft in place, but I'm doing it so that I don't puke all the gear oil out of the housing in there. So that's the gist of that. With just a little bit of finagling, we get this thing in here. And I just prefer to do it this way because it just makes such a god-awful mess if you get your, if you pull the shaft out, because then all the gear oil comes puking out of there. Get that started in there. Then you put your camber adjustment bushing in up front here. Piece of cake. All right. So now we've got our other driver's side axle assembly back in with the differential and all new ball joints. It's time to move on to the passenger side. This side's easy as pie because, you know, the shaft comes out without puking gear oil everywhere, and you can get at the bolts a lot easier. I can use a ratchet for this. And we're going to get started. I'm going to go ahead and take this off first, so I'm going to blast that in the cabinet anyway, and that'll leave me more wide open to use the wet blaster on this part. So you're gonna have to forgive me. We're in the dog days of summer right now, so I gotta keep my shop fan going. It's just bloody hot. So anyway, we'll get all our bolts and everything off and get this thing broken down and get it blasted and primed and painted and put back in the truck. You know, I think what I'll do, I'm going to go ahead and pull this bushing out before I start wet blasting, so we can see how trash this one is. The passenger side is usually the side that gets the most abuse. I guess that's because that's where all your potholes are, for the most part. And you can see how this one's done completely. All the rubber on the top here, it started to, you know, pooch the bracket out to the point where if it had gone much longer, it would have damaged the I-beam. You can see the center sleeve had actually gone up and worn through and started cutting through that. That's why it didn't want to come out with the press, because it was just collapsing. So, yep. All right, so this job is going to call for the Mighty MacGyver's Workshop Redneck Wetblaster version 2.0. Now, before you go hating on it, talking about how janky it looks and all this, that, and the other, remember that a commercial wet blaster setup is going to run you about $500 a day to rent. And that's not including materials like your blast media and whatever else you got, a rust inhibitor, or whatever else you got to put in there to make it work. And you know, this little rig here, I can use, you know, cheap Lowe's play sand. It's got a sifter built into it where it'll automatically sift all the sand to make sure nothing too big gets through to clog the gun up, and just uses a regular pressure washer. And I may have 600 bucks in the whole thing. So, you know, okay, so it doesn't look like the latest iPhone. Okay, sue me. You know, I'm not much for making it look good. You know, as long as it works, I'm happy with it. So, and it ticks all the boxes for everything that I need it to do. And now you're going to see it work. But I'll have to put the camera way back and zoom in because that sand will get everywhere and I don't want to get it on my camera. So that's why you haven't seen me use it much in this project. But I figured you probably want to see it work. So here goes. All blasted down to bare metal, and of course we got you get a little flash rust from the water, but that's okay. We'll wipe that down with some cleaner and then shoot it with some primer, and once it finishes drying, and then she'll look good as new. So I love that little wet blaster. That thing's awesome. Makes anything look just as good as new. And it's not near as messy. Now, we'll shoot it with some acid etching primer. That'll make sure everything, the epoxy paint sticks to it real good. And hopefully help keep it from rusting later. So what exactly is an acid etch primer, and how is it different from a regular primer, and why and when should you use it? Well, basically in a nutshell, anytime you take metal or take a part and clean it down to bare metal, you want to use an acid etch primer because as its name implies, it has an acid in it and it etches the metal and creates a much tighter bond with the primer, and that gives the paint, your finish coat, you know, a much more solid base to attach to, and it won't peel and flake off like, you know, the last time you spray painted your kid's bike or something. So in doing this project here with the Redneck Wetblaster and all that, you know, I've pretty much taken everything down to bare metal and started over and acid etch primed it and then color coded it so that, you know, it's not just going to look good for 5 minutes, you know, when I deliver the truck. You know, it's going to stay looking good. So, you know, providing the guy doesn't run through a gravel pit, you know, with the truck, you know, that paint's going to stay on there and it's going to stick really good. So that's why we use acid etch primer. Now, it doesn't matter whether you use a gallon can and run it through your HVLP gun or whether you use a rattle can. It's really no difference. You know, it just more matters what's convenient for you. You know, because I'm doing all these small parts here and there once every weekend. It doesn't make any sense for me to, you know, prep up a gun and all that just to do one part when this will accomplish exactly the same thing. So there you have it. So hopefully maybe you learned something today. All right, I got this all blasted and looking brand spiffy new, and now I've still got the spindle and all the other little parts and the coil spring, and I still have to sandblast in the cabinet to get those ready before I can start to put this back on the front of the truck, and that's going to take hours. So I'm going to go ahead and cut the video here, and appreciate everybody. Thank you for watching. Hope maybe you learned something as we go, and you know, please subscribe. If you like what you see, feel free to post in the comments there. We welcome all the comments. Ring the little bell icon so you get notified whenever I post a new video in this series or any of my other videos, because you never know what we're going to be working on next. And you can also email me at MacGyversWorkshop@gmail.com, and I'll get back to you there. So appreciate you. Thanks for watching. Hope you had a good, happy 4th of July. See ya.